Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvitesa Shunyavadi Paskatyade Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krišna, Hare Krišna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadekacharya Asadhara Sadhu Shri Shiman, His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribo, Slava Zabrani Bhaktam, Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi. Om Magana Tivanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttabhara Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Pradana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakansvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text number 40. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Ladies. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So when you see up, when you see in Sanskrit, when you see up, then it's not api, it's apyasya. Yeah, the Y, the end, it goes with the next word. Na, there is not. Iha, in this yoga. Abhikrama, in endeavoring. Nasha, loss. Asti, there is. Pratyavaya, diminution. Na, never. Vidyate, there is. Swapam, a little. Api, although. Asya, of this. Dharmasya, occupation. Trayate, releases. Mahata, from very great. Bhayat, danger. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100%, by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. Tyaktva sadharma charanam bhujam harer bhujanya bhaktavo ta patetito yadi yatra kwa babudram abuddha musha kim kavarta apto bhajatam sabdhamataha. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gains the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and the results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured brahmana or in a rich aristocratic family, that will give one further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Neha vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidite swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato vayat. In this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tiramane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Satarane. From the basic principle that we're eternal comes all the other principles, and add on to that the principle that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have the whole complete philosophy. Everything else is a detail. Because here is an important detail, is that between our becoming Krishna conscious and our present state of consciousness, there's a progression. And Prabhupada says there's 1%, 2%, 3%, etc., up until 100% or more. Now, since we're all eternal, one who's engaged in devotional service, sooner or later, in some time or another, either this lifetime or in the future, if he continues on with his Krishna conscious activities, he'll get up to 100%. In the material world, if you get some percentage of something, and then somehow or another you do something wrong, you get a minus, until you may wind up with minus, either in this lifetime or in the next lifetime. But in Krishna consciousness, we get 100%. There's only progression. Therefore, there's no other activity which is equal to activities in Krishna consciousness. Although, from the materialistic point of view, some people appreciate one thing or they appreciate something else, They appreciate wealth, or as Queen Kunti says, Janmaishvarya Shuta Shrivira Edamanak Madak Puman Naivahat Yavadatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gochara. You can get a chair if you want. That Queen Kunti says generally people are interested in 4 major things. Janma, which means to take birth in a nice situation, a nice country. I don't know which country that is nowadays, but some nice country somewhere. And Janmaishvarya, and to get wealth. Because if you're born in a nice country but you have no money, you're in trouble. And unless it's a really nice country and they take care of you like a little baby for the rest of your life. Aishvarya, Shruta means learning. Nowadays, if you can convince people that 1 + 1 is equal to 3, then you're considered to be quite advanced in learning. Or black is actually white and white is black, then you're considered to be a very advanced, logical person. Anyhow, there's material education. There is science, how this material world works, whether it be being able to make an airplane, a jet plane, or an atomic bomb. There is knowledge of materialistic things. What it has in relation to the self, that's another thing. But there's material knowledge. And when it's considered, the more one, especially nowadays, technology is considered to be so important. So, Shruta, Shribi, and then of course personal beauty. Everyone wants to look like they're 20 years old when they're 90. Everyone wants to be attractive, somehow or another, influence other people, Shribi. So these are considered to be material opulences. The only problem is that they're false, because this body is not us, and therefore to think that we're making progress, the more wealth we get, the more material education we get, the more personal beauty we have, or the more we're considered to be a high class by birth in a particular family, then the more we become bewildered by illusion. If you put on a dress of a millionaire, it doesn't make you really a millionaire. And if you're wearing the dress of a beggar in the street, just the external covering doesn't make you a beggar in the street. So similarly, the soul is putting on all different dresses and identifying with them and thinking he's made advancement or he's become degraded according to the dress he has on. Of course, in the material world, there are different grades, higher and lower. There's the mode of goodness, considered to be higher, and it gives illumination. But that illumination should be that one understands his real self and the Supreme Self. If one is in the mode of goodness and he doesn't understand the Supreme Lord, nor his own real self, who he actually is, not the fact that he's eternal, but the fact that he has a relationship with the Supreme Person, then his so-called being in the mode of goodness is false. He's actually in the mode of ignorance. Or, as Prabhupada once said, if one thinks he's happy in the mode of goodness, he's actually in ignorance. How can you be happy in a world where everything is growing old and diminishing and then disappearing? In a world of birth, death, old age, and disease, and then rebirth, how can one actually think he's happy? There may be relative freedom from distress, but positive happiness is not existing in the material world. It's existing in the spiritual world. So, from the materialistic point of view, everyone is working hard to gain wealth, personal influence, association with high-class people, and material education. But they have nothing to do with discovering and recovering our real identity as a spiritual being. Therefore, Queen Kunti even says, Vishan Vihagne Purushara Darshana asata sabaya vanavana grichdata rite mride neka hara tastraso tranyastudajma virakshitaha. She says that Bhima was fed poison, Vishan Mahagni, and then we were thrown into our house was set on fire. Then we went into the jungle and a man-eater tried to eat us. And she goes on, one problem after another. But then she says, which was surprising, that we wish to see these calamities again and again so that we can see you again and again. Because when we see you, there won't be any more seeing of repeated birth and death. So generally speaking, if someone's in difficulty, they're praying that the difficulty can be ended. But she's praying for more difficulty. Because the difficulty when she and her sons faced difficulty, they took shelter of Krishna. And by taking shelter of Krishna, they were making advancement in spiritual consciousness. And by such advancement, they were becoming free from old age, disease, and death. They're making more and more progress spiritually. So one class of people, they judge everything from the material point of view, how much they're making progress. Another class of people, they judge things from the spiritual point of view, how much they're becoming conscious of Krishna. One side, we're becoming less and less conscious of Krishna, more and more enamored by the material energy, and the other side, we're becoming less and less enamored by the material energy by becoming more and more conscious of Krishna. One side, the materialistic side, you may become fabulously rich in one life, like King Riga. King Riga had so much opulence, he was able to give more cows away to the Brahmins than there are stars in the sky. That's a lot of cows. Or rainfall, drops of rain in a rainfall. That's a lot of rain. That's a lot of cows. And he not only gave away cows in charity, but they were all very nice cows. They all had one calf. They just gave birth to one calf, and they were all giving milk. And at the same time, they were covered with a silk wrapper, and they had golden horns and silver hooves. And then he gave them all away to qualified Brahmins. Not only he gave away cows in charity, but he also dug wells. And he set up different places for free food distribution and for pilgrimage on the road so that they would actually have some place to stay when they were traveling. And he did this for many years, but he committed one mistake accidentally, and in the next lifetime he became a lizard. Because luckily we're in Kali Yuga, things are not as strict as they were when he was around, but still, for all his good material pious activities, somehow or another, by just some small mistake, he had to take a very miserable birth. Of course, he remembered Krishna because he was also a devotee, and therefore Krishna came and took him out of the well, and he was liberated. We may not be so lucky. We wind up becoming a lizard. Don't count on Krishna coming and taking you out of it. Or if he does, it's going to be in the next Dwarpa Yuga. It's going to be in the next cycle of Brahma, the next day of Brahma. Krishna doesn't come so often. Therefore, the conclusion here is, as Krishna will go on in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna was asking him, now, Krishna, you're talking about this yoga system that I'm supposed to follow, but I can't, I try to follow it, but actually, as soon as I stop following it, then I stop doing my prescribed duty. And according to your previous statement, if I don't do my prescribed duty, if I don't take care of my occupational duty, then I'm going to get some reaction for it. On the other hand, it's so difficult, this yoga practice, trying to control the mind is more difficult than trying to control the wind. So what's going to happen to me? What happens to the transcendentalist who doesn't materially gain anything and spiritually doesn't achieve very much? What happens to him? So then Krishna says, Prapya punya kritam lokam ushisva shasviti samak suchinam shimatam gehe yoga brashta brijayate. That the transcendentalist, even if he doesn't obtain perfection, then he takes birth on first he goes to the higher planets, and then he comes back down again. And even if he's wasn't very serious about his practice, at least he takes birth in a family of either Brahmins, learned persons, or mercantile people. And therefore, from the very beginning of his life, if he takes birth as a Brahmin family, he'll be taught spiritual values. And if he takes birth in a mercantile family, because he didn't practice that much, then at least he won't have to worry about money. He won't have to run around trying to get money, and therefore he'll have an opportunity at least to practice Krishna consciousness without worrying about his financial status. And if he's more serious, ataiva yoginam eva, kule bhavati dimatam, etadi durlabhataram, loki janma didijisham. If he's even more serious, then he takes birth amongst learned transcendentalists. And therefore, from the very beginning of his life, he's taught spiritual values. Probably just to point out, just like these children here, how many of us in our childhood came before the deities and were playing the mridanga when we were half a year old? Anyone here, were you playing the mridanga when you were half a year? That's why you're here now. Yeah, so very rarely, most of us. But if one gets birth in a family of transcendentalists, then he's hearing Hare Krishna from the birth, he's getting prasadam, he's seeing the deities, he's hearing about the eternality of the self when he grows up a little bit. So even if he falls away, at least he's gotten some injection of Krishna consciousness from the beginning of his life. And generally, sometime later, like Ajamil, he was a dutiful Brahmin, and although he fell down, still at some point Krishna arranged it, so at the end of his life he was able to chant Hare Krishna and be saved. Therefore, and then Krishna says that he gives the progression after the Dana Yoga. Tatra tam buddhisam yogam labate purvadehikam yata chat tato bhuya samsado kurunandana. And thus taking such a birth, he revises the divine consciousness of his previous life. So we're all here because we did something in the past in Krishna consciousness, and now we've just revived it and we're taking up where we left off before. Rupa Goswami says that devotional service is a continuum after one life after another, until one finally reaches perfection. And even if one is starting his first time in his first life, still he gets credit and he'll continue on life after life. Maybe some lives making more advancement, some lives making less, but eventually one will reach perfection. And he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success of Sanukunti. So especially if one got a higher taste, for instance, Vilamangal Thakur was on the stage of bhava. He was on the stage of ecstasy, but somehow or another, due to some offense or bad association, he fell down and became Vilamangal. What would he become? Surada? No, it was Vilamangal Thakur. Yeah, Vilamangal. Later he's known as Suradas. So he got into trouble because of some offense. But then his girlfriend reminded him about Krishna, and he went to Vrindavan and became a perfect devotee there. He lived for 800 years, Vilamangal Thakur. And then Krishna says, Purvava sena tena varieteya vishopi sa linasya api yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yoga principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So we find people just seemingly, one day they just wake up and they decide they'll join the Hare Krishna movement. No one could figure out what happened to them. That's because of their previous lives, and when the proper time came, then they got inspired to become Krishna conscious again, make some more progress. Pratnadyadhyatmananastu yoga samsiddhi kil visha aneka janma samsiddha satoyati param gatim. When the yogi engages himself in sincere endeavor, making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, and ultimately achieving perfection after many, many lives practice, he attains the supreme goal. So that's Krishna consciousness. It's all auspicious, and Prabhupada wanted to establish Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to establish Krishna consciousness all over the world, because everyone has the chance, especially in the human form of life. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his mercy, you don't have to be a Brahmin, you don't even have to practice cleanliness, you don't have to do anything, you just have to chant Hare Krishna, and then you'll make spiritual progress, especially if you hear the chanting from the lips of a pure devotee. Then if you repeat what he says, trying to repeat what he says, then you make spiritual progress. And that sometime in the future, if you get a sufficient taste by chanting, a little liking for it, or a liking for prasadam, or something, then you'll take it up in your next lifetime and then life after life until you reach perfection. So the whole idea is to give people a higher taste so that they can become inspired to practice. And even if they don't practice completely one lifetime, eventually they will become perfect. And the progress is there. Krishna says, Tapasvibhyo diko yogi, jnani vyopi diko dikaha, karmi vyascha diko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjana. That the yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So there are different persons who are, materially speaking, progressive. The ascetic, trying to control his senses, the empiricist, the person who's trying to figure out what's going on in the world, and the fruit greater than the fruitive worker. So Krishna is describing about, more or less, the karma yogi, the jnani yogi, and the astanga yogi. Now Krishna will say, yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana sarva bhajate yomam same yuktatamam mahataha. And of all the yogis, one with great faith always abides in me thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service unto me, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of them all. That is my opinion. So, when we take to bhakti yoga, although externally it doesn't seem as impressive as people who are making vast amounts of money and donating it, or even a little bit, or those who are learned in the Shastra, but haven't reached quite the proper conclusion that Krishna is God, and those who can actually meditate on the Paramatma within the heart, but are not really so interested in surrendering to him. If one takes to the chanting of Hare Krishna with some knowledge and starts thinking about Krishna and trying to render service to him with love, then Krishna says that is the quickest, most desirable method of yoga, and is the highest, one will get the highest achievement. That one ever does in bhakti yoga, even accidentally or by chance, then they'll get great benefit from it. Not only in this lifetime, but life after life, until one goes back to the spiritual world to live eternally in bliss and knowledge. So nothing could be more auspicious. We should have some faith in it. We may not have full realization, but we should have some faith that we're doing the best thing for ourselves and for others. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes. We have a microphone.
I was thinking about
Is it on? Is the green light? Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking about Jarasandha. When Bhimsena, Arjuna and Krishna, they went to him because they wanted to do this Rajasuya Yagya. And when they dressed as Brahmanas, but what's his name?
Jarasandha?
Jarasandha, he recognized them that because they had marks of the bow, that they are not really Brahmanas, but they're disguised as Brahmanas.
They had very deep voices too.
Yeah, grave. Yeah, they were very deep. And that they are Kshatriyas, but they're just disguised as Brahmanas. And then when they told the real identity, Jarasandha started laughing at Krishna because that's his enemy in that sense. And Arjuna was younger than him, so he didn't want to fight. But the only one was Bhimsena could fight. But this was planned by Krishna because he knew that Jarasandha was he had so much of strength that only Bhim could fight with him. So yeah, they were fighting and all this stuff. But when I was hearing this Krishna book, it says there that after the fight they rested in his palace. So I was just thinking that they went to kill him, and then they're resting in his palace.
Well, that's typical for Kshatriyas. That's what they did at the Kurukshetra war also.
Yeah.
That's because they weren't in the bodily concept of life, so it's hard for us to understand. If someone looks at me the wrong way, I want to kill him. I don't want to go and stay at his house. But even they're trying to kill each other, still, it's part of it's being a Kshatriya. It's like a game to them, because they weren't in the bodily concept of life. Therefore, they could, when they were fighting, and when they were, at night, they were friends with each other.
Yeah, even in Kurukshetra war, I heard that after the sunset, they would visit each other's camp.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens even in modern warfare, like the famous was in Christmas, when they started the First World War, I guess 1914, during Christmas, there was a truce, spontaneous. It wasn't declared by any of the leaders. They just had a truce. And both sides came to each other and celebrated Christmas together with music and eating together. And the Germans and the French and the British, they all just had a party for Christmas. And then they went back the next day trying to kill each other. So there was a bit of civilization previously, even 100 years ago.
But another question is, if we see from this example, like they are not in the bodily concept of life. So if you see, for example, the Pandavas, they went through so many tribulations in life. And they were also banished and the kingdom was taken and all of that. So in that sense, we can also then perhaps think that they were also not on bodily concept of life, even though so many tribulations were...
Yeah, of course they weren't in the bodily concept of life. The Pandavas were pure devotees.
Yeah.
That's why they could think about Krishna when they had problems. So if you think about Krishna when you have problems, you'll get out of the bodily concept of life. And you think about Krishna when you have problems, and you're a transcendentalist, and you'll be in ecstasy. Like when Durvasa Muni threw the fiery demon at Ambarish Maharaj, he closed his eyes and tears came from his eyes out of ecstasy because he concentrated his mind upon Krishna. Not out of fear of the fiery demon, but out of ecstasy of thinking about Krishna. Therefore, we wish he sees these calamities again and again. At least they did. I don't know if we're thinking like that. They were thinking.
If Kunti Devi is saying we wish to see the calamities again and again, it kind of makes sense now because they were not in bodily concept of life.
Right, yeah.
Somebody who's in bodily concept of life wouldn't say, I want to see calamities again and again.
If we can think about Krishna, if it helps us think about Krishna, if that's our goal, if we're thinking that if there's some calamity and it'll force me to think about Krishna, then we might think like that a little bit. Of course, as I always say, we don't have to pray to Krishna for calamities, because they're coming anyhow. In Kali Yuga, they come one after another without any prayer. Krishna is very kind in this age. Anything else? Yes.
Can't understand this maybe properly. Isn't it when we have calamities and we think of Krishna, it seems like it's like praying to Krishna for fulfillment of material desires, to go calamities away or some material situation or something.
Devotees love Krishna, so they want to think about him with more and more intensity.
So what is the right then stance in calamity with connection with Krishna? Not to pray to help us or just to think about
why not? Gajendra was, at our particular stage, Gajendra was being bitten by the crocodile, and he prayed to the Supreme to come and save him. He didn't pray for another crocodile to bite his other leg. He prayed for help. It's just, that's why Krishna has arranged the material world like that, to put us in difficulty so we can pray for him for help. That's advancement. We have enough problems. What do we need? What do we need? Who's praying for more problems? Without, only this unique situation. You pray for more problems in order to concentrate your mind upon Krishna. Otherwise, in our particular situation, most of us are not going to pray for more problems just for the sake of more problems. And if we're in difficulty, of course, our only shelter is Krishna. What else are we going to think about? And even if it was, in other words, say you were Gajendra and the crocodile grabbed your leg, and you were fighting him for thousands of years, and then finally you're about to lose the battle. Now, the problem is you weren't thinking about Krishna for the last 1,000 years when you're fighting the crocodile. But now finally, you figure out, well, I'm finished, I better seek some shelter somewhere. So you start thinking about, the Supreme to come and help you at least. So now he's made some spiritual advancement. Now he's actually, for all that thousands of years it paid off, because now he's finally in a position where he has to surrender to Krishna to come and help him, take care of the crocodile. Other than that, he would have been, spending his life for those 1,000 years with his female elephants in the water enjoying. But this crocodile came along and helped him, because now finally, after the thousands of years, he's done something useful. He's starting to think about Krishna. He's praying to the Supreme at least to come and save him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just, these situations associate, it's similar to, I was thinking about how impersonalists, they don't want material, they have bad experience with material situations, and that's why then but it's different because here it's taken shelter of Krishna, not of...
Well, Brahman is also Krishna. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya. Krishna is the source of Brahman. So the impersonalists, knowingly or unknowingly, when they're taking shelter of Krishna. Now there's a difference between a Mayavadi and an impersonalist. An impersonalist, like Shukadeva Goswami, he was in Brahman consciousness, so he wasn't averse to Krishna. So he was out of the material world, he was out of material misery at least. And then he progressed to Krishna consciousness by the grace of his father, Vyasadeva, and Krishna also. So it is advanced. The impersonalists considered, those who have actually merged in Brahman, they're considered higher than the materialist or the speculator or even the yogi. But it's not a permanent position, unfortunately. Anything else?
because you are mentioning these many lifetimes, and Srila Prabhupada sometimes promoted this idea that we should go back to Godhead in this life. So what does it take to actually go back to Godhead?
In one lifetime, I have no idea. When I get there, I'll tell you. In one lifetime, I mean, Prabhupada said, don't worry about it, life after... I mean, Prabhupada also said that, because it says that in the verse, it's a gradual process. But it should be so gradual. It depends on our sincerity, and our sincerity depends upon how much we actually, as Prabhupada writes in the end of the second chapter, that it's only a question of understanding and accepting the fact. One can attain divine life in a moment, or not after millions of years. It's only a question of understanding and accepting the fact. So we have to make some attempt, we might make progress, to understand what this is all about, and then to actually accept it so we apply it within our existence, within our lives. Otherwise it could take millions of years. Gradually, after millions of years, you may reach perfection, but how many Kali Yugas do you want to see? How many little people do you want to have running after you to eat you before you take it seriously? So that's our choice. We can stay around, birth after birth, and make real gradual progress. And then in the next lifetime of Brahma, we can go back to Godhead, to going through a lot of problems. What is the value of, what is the need to go through all these unnecessary materialistic problems? So therefore Prabhupada said, if you're sincere, you can make it in one lifetime. And if you don't make it in one lifetime, if you're that sincere, you'll make it after a short period of time. Yes. Here.
But isn't that even going to the spiritual world, one doesn't go directly to the spiritual world, but one goes to a planet where he actually gets trained, or the planet where the pastimes of Lord Krishna are happening?
Yeah, of course, he goes to, but as Swarup said, or Gopakumara said, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's really no difference between Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world and Gokula Vrindavan in this world. So even one joins Krishna's pastimes in Gokula Vrindavan on this mundane, seemingly mundane, it's still transcendental. It's not different from the spiritual world. And so Swarup, who's formerly Gopakumara, he comes back to Gokula Vrindavan periodically, and he doesn't see any difference between Gokula Vrindavan and Goloka Vrindavan. So to join Krishna's pastimes and get trained up in Gokula Vrindavan is no problem, because you're already in the spiritual platform. Therefore, to join Krishna's pastimes in Gokula Vrindavan, generally to actually join them and participate, means you have to have a certain level of realization, at least bhava, and then you get trained up to become to the platform of prema. You have to be a pure devotee to join Krishna. So you're already on spiritual consciousness, in the spiritual world, spiritual existence, or that there's no difference between devotional service and the kingdom of God. You're already in the kingdom of God by performing devotional service. What to speak if you're playing with Krishna personally, directly, what's the problem?
So which means when the Lord was present on this planet, in Gokul Vrindavan, and all those devotees who joined his pastimes were also, some of them were transferred on this planet to get trained, and then after training they would eventually go back to spiritual world.
That's training. There's a certain amount of expertise you have to learn. If you bring the prasadam to Krishna, you can't trip over the kandamba flower and spill it all over them. What's that? Yeah. Takes a little training. Watch out for the kandamba flowers on the way.
I also heard that devotees get trained under Rupa Goswami, like Manjari.
Well, that's another whole different. That's for the Manjaris. If you're a Manjari, first go to Lalita, and she thinks you're qualified, she sends it to Rupa Goswami to get trained up, and then when he sees that you're qualified as a maidservant, then he takes you before Radha and Krishna for service. And there's a whole... They have a good training program. They've been doing it eternally, so they know it, they've gotten it together. All right. Khala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
We like to see those